Think about the people you see every day but never really notice. The person who makes your coffee, the bus driver, the security guard, the cashier at your grocery store. You see them, you might smile, say hello, but do you really see them? Do you know their names, their stories, what makes them laugh? Most of us don't. But in a small town in Georgia, there was a grocery store cashier who did something remarkable. She saw everyone. She remembered everyone. For 32 years, Dorothy Williams stood behind that cash register and made people feel like they mattered. She knew your name, your kids' names, who was sick, who got married, who needed encouragement. And then one Tuesday morning, she wasn't there, and hundreds of people noticed. What happened next revealed something beautiful about human connection, invisible work, and how much one person can matter. Even when the world tells them they're just a cashier. If you've ever felt invisible in your work, this story is for you. If you've ever walked past a service worker without really seeing them, this story will change that. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Truly Black and White, and get ready for one of the most beautiful stories about dignity, community, and what happens when we actually see the people who serve us every day. This is about Dorothy Williams. And the town that refused to let her disappear. Let's begin. Dorothy Williams was born in Warner Robins, Georgia in 1956. Warner Robins is a small city about 80,000 people south of Macon. It's the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where the same families have lived for generations, where the grocery store is more than just a place to buy food. It's where community happens. Dorothy was the youngest of 5 children. Her father worked at Robins Air Force Base. Her mother cleaned houses for wealthy families in the nicer part of town. Growing up, Dorothy watched her mother work. She'd see her come home exhausted, knees aching from scrubbing floors, hands raw from cleaning solutions. Her mother would work 10, 12-hour days cleaning other people's homes, cooking their meals, doing their laundry. And most of the time, those families barely acknowledged her existence. Young Dorothy once asked her mother, "Mama, why do you care so much about those people? They don't even see you." Her mother stopped folding laundry and looked at Dorothy with wise, tired eyes. "Baby, just because someone doesn't see you doesn't mean you're not worth seeing. I see myself, I know my worth, and I see them, really see them, because that's who I am, not because of who they are." Dorothy carried that lesson her whole life. She graduated high school in 1974. She dreamed of going to college, maybe becoming a teacher. She loved children. She loved learning. She could imagine herself in a classroom shaping young minds, but money was tight. Her father had gotten sick, lung problems from years of working around airplane fuel. The family needed income now, so at 18 years old, Dorothy got a job at the Piggly Wiggly on Watson Boulevard. Starting position, cashier. Starting wage, $2.10 an hour. She thought it would be temporary, just until her dad got better, just until she saved enough for college, but her father didn't get better. He died in 1976 when Dorothy was just 20 years old, and suddenly she was one of the main earners for her family. College would have to wait. Years passed. Dorothy kept working. She got married at 24 to a man named James. They had 2 children, a son named Marcus and a daughter named Keisha. The marriage didn't last. James left when Dorothy was 32, just walked out one day and never came back. So Dorothy became a single mother, raising 2 kids on a cashier's salary. Do you know what that's like? Let me tell you. There were months when Dorothy had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying new shoes for her kids. Months when dinner was rice and beans every single night. Months when she worked double shifts, 16 hours standing on her feet just to make rent. She'd come home at midnight, exhausted, and still have to help Marcus with his homework, pack lunches for the next day, do laundry in the bathtub because the washing machine was broken and she couldn't afford to fix it. It wasn't easy, it was never easy, but Dorothy never complained. She showed up, every shift, on time, ready to work. And somewhere along the way, she made a decision. If she was going to spend 40 hours a week more with overtime standing behind that cash register, she was going to make it matter. She was going to see people, really see them. She started remembering names, at first just the regulars, the people who came in every week. Mrs. Johnson, who always bought cat food and TV dinners. Mr. Harris, who came in every Sunday for his lottery tickets and a newspaper. Then she started remembering everyone. She had a gift for it. A woman would come through her line once, introduce herself, mention her grandson's baseball game, and Dorothy would remember. 2 weeks later, that woman would come back and Dorothy would say, "Hi there, Mrs. Peterson, did your grandson make the baseball team?" Mrs. Peterson would freeze, shocked. How did you remember that?" Dorothy would smile. I pay attention, you're worth remembering. Those 5 words became Dorothy's signature. You're worth remembering. And they changed how people felt about themselves. Over 32 years, Dorothy touched thousands of lives. Let me tell you about just a few of them. There was Michael, a teenager, maybe 16 or 17, who'd come into the store to buy energy drinks and junk food. He looked miserable, hoodie pulled up, eyes down, moving through the world like he was trying to disappear. Dorothy noticed. Michael, honey, you doing okay? You don't seem like yourself today. At first, Michael brushed it off. I'm fine. But Dorothy persisted, gently, kindly. Every time he came in, Michael, I see you, and I see that you're hurting. You don't have to tell me why, but I want you to know you matter to me. Finally, one day, Michael broke down. Right there in the checkout line, tears streaming down his face. He told Dorothy he was thinking about killing himself. His parents were getting divorced. He was being bullied at school. He felt completely alone. He'd been planning it, had written the note, picked the day. Dorothy stopped scanning groceries. She came around the register, put her hand on his shoulder, looked him in the eyes. You listen to me, Michael. You matter. Your life matters. You think nobody sees you, but I see you, and I'm going to give you the number for someone who can help you. Will you call them? Michael called. He got help. He went to therapy. He joined a support group for teens. He graduated high school. Years later, he came back to the store. He was in his 20s now, healthy, thriving. He came through Dorothy's line with his college diploma in hand. Miss Dorothy, I wanted you to see this. I graduated. Psychology major, I want to help other kids like me. He was crying. You saved my life. Dorothy hugged him tight. No, baby, I just reminded you that you were worth saving. You did the hard work of saving yourself. There was Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who'd immigrated from Taiwan in the 1980s. She came to the store every Tuesday morning, always at 9 a.m. Always bought the same things: rice, vegetables, tea, sometimes fish. She always looked lonely. Dorothy noticed that Mrs. Chen struggled with English sometimes, so Dorothy did something remarkable. She learned basic Mandarin phrases just to greet her. The first time Dorothy said, "Ni hao, Mrs. Chen," hello, in Mandarin, Mrs. Chen's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. "Ni hao, Dorothy," she responded, tears in her eyes. Every Tuesday after that, they'd have this little exchange. A moment of connection, a bridge across language and culture. Then one Tuesday, Mrs. Chen didn't show up. Dorothy noticed immediately. It was 9:15. Mrs. Chen was always there by 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., Dorothy was worried. She asked the store manager for Mrs. Chen's phone number from the loyalty card system. Technically against store policy, but the manager saw the concern in Dorothy's eyes and looked the other way. Dorothy called. It rang and rang. Finally, a weak voice answered. "Mrs. Chen, this is Dorothy from the Piggly Wiggly." "Are you all right?" Mrs. Chen had fallen 3 days earlier. She'd been alone in her apartment, unable to get up, too proud to call for help. Dorothy drove to her apartment after her shift. She brought groceries. She helped Mrs. Chen up. She stayed for tea and conversation, and she organized a network of neighbors to check on Mrs. Chen regularly. "Why do you do this?" Mrs. Chen asked, tears streaming down her face. "You're just a cashier." "I'm just a customer." Dorothy took Mrs. Chen's hand. "There's no such thing as just anything when it comes to people. You're Mrs. Chen, you matter to me." There was Amanda, a young mother, maybe 25, struggling with her first baby. She'd come through Dorothy's line looking exhausted, baby screaming, groceries scattered in the cart, fumbling for her credit card, clearly overwhelmed. Other customers were getting impatient, sighing, checking their watches. Dorothy took her time. She helped Amanda bag the groceries carefully. She smiled at the crying baby, made silly faces until the baby stopped crying for just a moment. Then she said quietly, so only Amanda could hear, "Amanda, you're doing a great job. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but that baby is lucky to have you." Amanda burst into tears right there in the middle of the checkout line. "Thank you. Nobody said that to me in months. Everyone just tells me what I'm doing wrong." Dorothy came around the register, held the baby while Amanda composed herself. Whispered, "Motherhood is the hardest job in the world, and nobody gives you a manual. You're doing better than you think. Be kind to yourself." Story after story, person after person, for 32 years, Dorothy didn't think of herself as doing anything special. She was just being human, seeing people, caring about them. But to the people she touched, it was everything. People started specifically choosing Dorothy's line, even when it was longer. They'd wait 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes just to check out with her, because those few minutes of genuine human connection were worth it. The store manager noticed. "Dorothy, you're slowing down the lines. People are waiting specifically for you." "I know," Dorothy said calmly, "but they're not waiting for fast service. They're waiting for someone who sees them. And that's worth more than speed." The manager couldn't argue because Dorothy's customers were loyal. They kept coming back. They brought their families. They bought more. Dorothy Williams was good for business. But more importantly, she was good for the soul of that community. Tuesday, March 12, 2024. The Piggly Wiggly opened at 7 a.m. like always. Dorothy's shift started at 7:30 a.m. At 7:35, the store manager, Tom, noticed Dorothy wasn't at her register. That was unusual. Dorothy was never late. In 32 years of working there, she'd called in sick maybe 5 times total. By 8 a.m., customers were noticing too. "Where's Dorothy? Is Dorothy working today? I specifically came on Tuesday because Dorothy works Tuesdays. Where is she?" Tom tried calling Dorothy's phone. It rang and rang, no answer. By noon, the store's Facebook page was flooded with messages. "Is Dorothy okay? She wasn't at work today and I'm worried. Can someone check on Dorothy Williams? This isn't like her. Dorothy is the heart of that store. Please tell us she's all right." Tom had been working at the Piggly Wiggly for 15 years. He'd never seen anything like this. Customers calling about an employee, worried about a cashier. It made him realize something he'd taken for granted. Dorothy wasn't just an employee, she wasn't just a cashier, she was the soul of this place. By 3 p.m., Tom made a decision. He got Dorothy's address from the employee files and drove to her apartment. It was in an older part of town, a small apartment complex, not particularly nice. Tom knocked on apartment 2 billion, no answer. He knocked again, louder. Finally, a weak voice. "Who is it?" "Dorothy, it's Tom from the store." "Can I come in? People are worried about you." There was a long pause, the sound of locks clicking. The door opened slowly. Dorothy stood there in her bathrobe, looking frail, exhausted, 20 years older than Tom remembered. He barely recognized her. "Dorothy, are you okay?" She tried to smile, but it came out weak. "I'm sorry I didn't call in. I've been sick. I didn't want to bother anyone." Tom looked around the small apartment. It was neat. Dorothy had always been fastidious but sparse, almost no food in the kitchen. The heat was turned way down even though it was cold outside. Bills stacked on the counter. "Dorothy, what's going on?" "Really?" And that's when the truth came out. Dorothy had been diagnosed with breast cancer 6 months earlier. Stage 2, aggressive. She'd been doing chemotherapy while working. She hadn't told anyone at the store because she needed the income. She couldn't afford to take time off. She had no savings, no safety net. The treatment had depleted everything she had. She was behind on rent. She couldn't afford both her medication and groceries. She'd been getting weaker, sicker, more exhausted, and she'd been doing all of this alone. Because Dorothy Williams, who'd spent 32 years making sure everyone else felt seen and cared for, didn't think anyone would care about her. Tom sat down heavily on her worn couch. "Dorothy, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you ask for help?" Dorothy looked down at her hands. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm just a cashier, Tom. Nobody cares about the cashier. People don't see us, we're invisible. I scan their groceries and they leave and they forget I exist." Tom felt his throat tighten. His eyes burned. "Dorothy, you're wrong. You're so wrong." He pulled out his phone, showed her the Facebook page. "Do you know how many people called today? How many messages we got? Hundreds, Dorothy. Hundreds of people worried about you. You're not just anything. You're Dorothy Williams. You've touched more lives in this town than you realize. And you matter so much." Dorothy started crying, quietly at first, then harder. 32 years of holding it together, of being strong for everyone else, of never asking for help, it all came pouring out. Tom held her hand. "We're going to help you. I'm going to help you. The whole community is going to help you. You've been taking care of us for 32 years. It's our turn to take care of you." Tom went back to the store and called an emergency staff meeting. He told them everything about the cancer, the financial struggles, how Dorothy had been suffering alone. The reaction was immediate. Within an hour, one of the younger employees had set up a GoFundMe page. The goal was $5,000, enough to cover Dorothy's medical bills and a few months of rent. Within 24 hours, they'd raised $50,000. Within a week, over $200,000. The donations came from everywhere, from customers Dorothy had known for decades, from people who'd only met her once but remembered how she'd made them feel, from people who'd never even met her but heard her story and wanted to help. But it wasn't just money. People started showing up at Dorothy's apartment with food. home-cooked meals, enough to fill her small freezer and then some. An anonymous donor paid her rent for the next year. A local oncologist, Dr. Patricia Martinez, reached out and offered to coordinate Dorothy's care pro bono. She deserves the best treatment possible, and money shouldn't be an obstacle. A house cleaning service volunteered to clean Dorothy's apartment weekly. For free, Michael, the teenager Dorothy had helped years ago, was now 28 years old. When he heard about Dorothy's situation, he organized a schedule of drivers to take her to every single chemotherapy appointment. Every appointment for the next 6 months was covered. Dorothy would never go alone. Mrs. Chen started visiting every Tuesday. She'd bring tea and dumplings and conversation. She'd sit with Dorothy and they'd talk about Taiwan, about America, about life. "You visited me when I fell," Mrs. Chen said. "Now I visit you. This is what friends do." Amanda, the young mother, organized a group of women to sit with Dorothy during her chemotherapy treatments. So she'd never be alone in that cold treatment room. They'd bring books to read to her. They'd hold her hand when the nausea hit. They'd tell her jokes to distract her from the IV in her arm. The outpouring was overwhelming. Dorothy couldn't believe it. She kept saying, Why are people doing all this for me?" Tom would smile and repeat what Dorothy had said to so many others over the years, "Because you're worth it. You're worth remembering." The local news picked up the story. Beloved Cashier receives community's support after cancer diagnosis. Reporters came to interview Dorothy. She sat in her small apartment, still weak from treatment, and said something that would be quoted across the country. "I hope this story makes people think about the cashiers, the janitors, the people who serve them every day. We're not invisible, we're human beings with families and struggles and dreams. We deserve to be seen." The story went viral, not because it was sensational, but because it was true. It touched something deep in people. The recognition that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of their job title. Dorothy's story sparked conversations across the entire country. People started sharing their own stories of service workers who'd made them feel seen. A bus driver in Seattle who knew every regular passenger's name and would wait an extra minute if he saw someone running for the bus. A janitor at a high school in Ohio who left encouraging notes for students during exam week. "You're doing great, believe in yourself." A barista in Portland who learned sign language to better serve a deaf customer who came in every morning. Story after story of service workers who went beyond their job descriptions to honor the humanity of the people they served. And it made people question something fundamental. Why do we value some work more than others? Why do we call service work unskilled, when it requires so much skill, just not the kind we reward with high pay or status? Why do we look through the people who serve us? The Piggly Wiggly where Dorothy worked became, oddly, a pilgrimage site. People from other cities would stop by when passing through Warner Robins, just to shop there. Just to see where Dorothy had worked for 32 years, just to honor her legacy. The store put up a plaque near the registers, in honor of Dorothy Williams, who taught us that every person deserves to be seen. 6 months after her diagnosis, Dorothy finished her chemotherapy. The cancer was in remission. She'd beaten it. With the best medical care, with community support, with love surrounding her, she'd beaten it. She wanted to come back to work. The store offered her a modified position, fewer hours, a stool to sit on, no more 8-hour standing shifts. But the community had other ideas. With the GoFundMe money and additional donations that kept coming in, they'd raised enough to give Dorothy a full retirement, with health care coverage, with a comfortable monthly income, with dignity. She could rest. She could focus on her health. She'd earned it. Dorothy cried when they told her, "I've never not worked since I was 18 years old. I don't know what I'd do." Tom smiled. "You'll do whatever makes you happy, Dorothy. You've spent 32 years taking care of everyone else. It's time to take care of yourself." Dorothy did retire, but she didn't disappear. She didn't fade away. She volunteers now at the hospital where she received treatment. She sits with cancer patients during their chemotherapy sessions. She holds their hands. She talks to them. She makes them feel less alone. She remembers their names because that's who Dorothy is. That's who she's always been. Someone who sees people, someone who makes them feel like they matter. Today, Dorothy Williams is 68 years old, cancer-free, retired, living comfortably in a nicer apartment, paid for by a community that refused to let her struggle. But her impact continues. In Warner Robins, people talk about doing a Dorothy. It means remember names, see people, make human connection a priority. The new cashiers at Piggly Wiggly are trained differently now. They're taught that their job isn't just scanning groceries efficiently. Their job is creating community, making people feel seen. The store has a new policy. Cashiers are encouraged to take time with customers, to learn names, to ask how people are doing. Speed matters less than connection. Michael, the young man Dorothy saved, is now a therapist. He works with teenagers struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. And he tells every single one of them about Dorothy. Someone saw me when I felt invisible, and it saved my life. I see you, you matter. Mrs. Chen still visits Dorothy every Tuesday. They have tea together. They've become family. Amanda, the young mother, now has 3 children. She brings them to visit Miss Dorothy regularly. She tells them, "This woman taught me that kindness costs nothing but means everything." And Dorothy, she sits in her comfortable apartment, surrounded by photos of the people whose lives she touched, and she smiles. "I was just doing my job," she says when people call her a hero. But the truth is, Dorothy was doing something far more important than a job. She was honoring the humanity in every person she met, and that changed everything. So what can we learn from Dorothy's story? First, there's no such thing as just anything when it comes to human dignity. No job is too small to matter. No person is too ordinary to have extraordinary impact. Seeing people, really seeing them, is a revolutionary act. A world that tells us to rush, to be efficient, to treat people as transactions, taking time to remember names and ask about lives, is radical kindness. The work we do matters less than how we do it. Dorothy could have been a bitter cashier who resented her circumstances. Instead, she chose to make her work meaningful by honoring every person she encountered. Community shows up when we invest in it. Dorothy spent 32 years building relationships, and when she needed help, those relationships held her. Everyone deserves to be seen. The cashier, the janitor, the bus driver, the person serving you coffee, they're not invisible. They're human beings with stories and worth. I challenge you. Learn the name of someone who serves you, your barista, your mail carrier, the person who cleans your office. What they're doing, really listen. Because here's the truth Dorothy taught us. Humanity has no hierarchy, worth has no job title, dignity belongs to everyone. See each other, really see each other. We build communities that care. Watching Truly Black and White. Subscribe for more stories about dignity, humanity, and the people who remind us what matters. Dorothy's story, let it inspire you to see the people around you. Comment who's someone in a service job who made you feel seen, tell their story, honor them. Everyone you meet is worth